Hello and good evening. This is live from the band room presented by MMBA, and we're joined tonight by Danny Raymond. Danny, thank you so much. Welcome.
Oh, my pleasure for being here. Thank you.
So for those that don't know, Danny is a percussionist. He's been with Walt Disney World as a performer for the last 30 years. And back in the day was a snare drum solo champion in DCA, and then went on to do a lot of teaching and composing of solos and things like that. And so we're going to talk about his experience and about his upbringing in the activity and what it's like to work at Disney World and all that fun stuff. And I'm sure some percussion things along the way. So so we hope everybody enjoys. Want to start right at the beginning. How did drumming start for you back in the the school band days, and how did that get you up to the drum corps years?
Well, it was actually the opposite way around for me. I was born basically into the drum corps activity. My dad, quick history, my dad was at a drum corps show, and I think the corps that he was with, the Hawthorne Caballeros, which is a DCA or all-age corps, they might have been giving an exhibition at a show, and my dad was introduced to who would turn out to be my mom from a rival drum corps of his, from a mutual friend from another drum corps. So, I mean, it's kind of the way we all connect in the marching activity. You know, you have friends that either march or are in drum corps or drumline or another high school, but we all kind of have this bond. So I was basically born into it. So by the time I came around, my dad was teaching and judging at that time. And my band experience started when I was in the 4th grade in elementary school. So back in the day, in the 3rd grade, the band director came to all the classes and said, he's the band director. If someone would like to learn an instrument, come talk to him. And he had a list of people who were giving private lessons. So I think I'm lucky in the fact that everything started early for me. Being exposed to drumming, through the marching activity, and then also getting into things like concert band, being able to get into theory, learning how to read music at a very early age.
That's great. And so you came up through that scene. Where did you march early on, and what was it like then compared to what it's like now?
Ooh. Well, first of all, it's a lot different. It was then. So my dad, when he would teach, I would be able to jump in somewhere, maybe play cymbals. I was probably 10 when I did my first parade with the drum corps. He was working with the drum corps from New Jersey, what used to be a feeder and broke away from what everyone knows as the Cadets. At that time, they were known as the Garfield Cadets. And they had a feeder corps, and they broke away, and they were called the Garfield Epics. And my dad was teaching there, and I was like 10 years old. So I started to learn how to march and coordinate my feet and my hands. And I played cymbals, and I marched in some Memorial Day parades. A couple of years later, I jumped in on snare with another smaller corps that he was teaching down the Jersey Shore called the Continentals. They were a small Garden State circuit drum corps. Again, I didn't probably get into doing anything serious as far as marching a season and competing until I was aged out of DCI, and I marched with the DCA, the New York Skyliners from New York in the DCA circuit.
Right. Awesome. Yep. And at what point after school, after drum corps, did the Disney thing come about? How did that start for you?
The Disney thing came about just by visiting down there with a girlfriend at the time. And when I was there, I had no idea. I was probably in my early 20s. And I'm walking through the parks and I'm thinking it's a theme park, but they had entertainment and they had music groups and they had marching music groups. So I was like, oh, okay. I never knew that something like that was out there. I had no idea. And eventually I went to audition, and it just so happens that the people that I auditioned for, one of them came out of drum corps. She was a percussionist. Her name was Beth Raddick at the time. She auditioned me, and I played my solo and ensemble piece because I had something that I needed to prepare. So they had something that they would put in front of you for sight reading. Mm-hmm. But it also helped that there was someone from the marching community who kind of knew, well, didn't kind of know. She knew what I was doing. She could understand everything that was going on in front of her. So that connection, again, here we are talking about, all the connection and the drumming and the marching community, the different opportunities and the connections that are out there. You never know. And it just so happens that she had marched with the Spirit of Atlanta, and was taught by Tom Float. So she knew, she knew people who were coming in to audition. I was lucky I had that connection there. So I happened to audition, and it was for a marching band at the Disney Studios when they were opening up back in 1989. And so that was another thing too. I was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So that helped. That worked out.
And so what was the original group that you performed with there? What was the instrumentation like? What kind of performances did they do?
It was a marching band, and they were primarily at the studios for something that was called the Star of the Day program, meaning that we were a marching band with a motorcade that went up Hollywood Boulevard at the Disney Studios, and celebrities, could be anything from movie, TV, sports stars, all right? They would be in a convertible waving to people, would put their hands in a cement ceremony at Disney MGM. So people there could see actual celebrities when it first opened, which was kind of a cool feature for everyone. You had all the theme rides and everything, but you could actually see people. So that was pretty neat. But when we weren't doing that parade, or motorcade, we would be set up and play in different sections of the park. So it consisted of a marching snare drum with two mounted toms on the side of the drums. So there was like an 8 and a 10, and a cymbal rig that hung off of the drum, maybe a 10 or 12-inch snare drum. We didn't have a full-size drum because, my God, I mean, it was just, with all that stuff.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, heavy. But so we had to make do with almost being a marching band / drum section with just two people. So the other person would play a bass drum. Sometimes it was a double bass. I think that was the setup for it. So you had two different pitches, and then the other person would handle like a snare tom drum set kind of rig. Yeah. 3 trumpets, maybe 2 or 3 trombones, 1 or 2 tubas, and a French horn. So it was like a small marching ensemble that started out.
That's cool.
Yeah. And the cool thing was, it's like, people I met, all right, we're talking about music and drumming, right? But you never know where this music thing is going to lead. I met Lyle Alzado. I met most of the cast, Jamie Farr, Gary Berghoff from MASH, McLean Stevenson, okay, who played Colonel, what's his name? Colonel Henry Blake from MASH. Okay. I had to do a drum roll, and that's when we hit a drum roll, and he puts his hands in cement. Well, he being who he was, he decided to say, no, wait, forget this drum stuff. I'm hitting a drum roll, a buzz roll. He comes and takes one of my sticks from me. So and maybe we'll talk about this later, I was able to do the push-pull thing. So I'm like, okay. So I got my one stick, And I went, da, 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 da. So I was like, right. So he got
That's awesome.
incensed, came back and grabbed the other stick from me. I was like, all right, I got nothing. I can't. Then he gave the sticks back to me. But I met him. So many other Burt Reynolds, Charlie Sheen. I mean, I can go on and on, but it was like,
That's cool.
Yeah, here I am meeting, different people. Dan Marino. Dan Marino, for people who know, he's a football player, right? Quarterback who was Miami Dolphins. We're getting ready to go out and do the motorcade. And I'm like, hey, Dan, how you doing? He goes, hey, I used to do that in high school. So he played drums. Who knew?
That's awesome.
Here you are talking with these people. So that opportunity came from auditioning. And again, you never know where this music thing is going to lead to. So that's what was very cool about the start of my career at Disney. That's another thing too. We're doing this marching band stuff. We're doing drum corps. We're doing solo and ensemble. And never in a million years did I think I'd be doing what I'm doing now, or have the opportunity to do what I'm doing, or have these opportunities that are out there for people to participate in. I mean, we can go into this more, but I'm going to jump ahead a little bit.
No, that's great.
You look at TV, okay? The Macy's parade. How many times have you seen drummers, some kind of drumline thing leading off the parade, or something showcased in that?
Yeah.
Super Bowl halftime, okay? Gentleman friend of mine, Brian Bloom. Most people know the name Jeff Queen. I forget the other two gentlemen that were there. There's another gentleman who's a judge who is also in the Air Force. I think it's the Air Force, but he's in the Armed Services. But he's the caption head of the Blue Coats. All right, he's there playing at the Super Bowl. So it's like, all these. Who knew that these opportunities existed to be able to do these things, or perform on stage, or to be able to have a job or a career with music? Yeah. So I mean, we could talk about more specifics, but I can't believe the things that I've been able to do, and I'm real fortunate to have those things. But if anything, if I'm going to jump ahead.
It's fine.
You never know where this stuff is going to lead people. You could end up on TV. You could be auditioning for something for a Super Bowl halftime. You could be working in a theme park. You could be writing your own thing for solo and ensemble. Maybe you get published. Maybe you start to teach your high school, or an indoor line, or a drum corps. Maybe you start to judge, and you take all these things and you're like, wow, you're able to have a career, and it's varied. And it's all because of starting out with paradiddles, or, your left and your right. Or if you're at the cadets, you start with your right and your left. But, but it's, you never know where this stuff is going to lead to. But the cool thing is no matter what, through anything that we'll talk about tonight, I've been able to enjoy all of it. It's fun.
That's awesome.
I enjoy it. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy judging. I enjoy writing. Honestly, as I'm getting older, it's a little harder to perform, but I do it, and I'm still going to do it while I still can, but because I enjoy it. And I think that's why we do what we do, why you teach, why people are in band, why we compete, why we don't compete, why we play drum set, why we're into this style, that style of music. We enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that I always think of when I think of you is how much fun you have when you perform. And I'm sure that I can't even guess the number of times you've done, the gig, whichever, it is. And once you do it for a few years and however many times a day, but I love getting to see you just throwing down on a trash can. You're always having a good time. I can always tell that. And it seems like it's impossible that you're faking it.
Well, no, you can't fake it.
Yeah. It's just,
well, for a number of reasons, with the group that what I ultimately ended up in, which is called the Jameters, and we perform at Epcot. And thankfully, through all this challenges that we're all going through right now, we were able to be brought back, and be safe enough so social distance, we're on a stage as opposed to being right there where you're walking through the park and these three guys show up and start drumming on, you know, buckets and terracotta pots and brooms and, you know, whatever. Stoves. Right now we're doing stoves because we're in our food and wine festival. All right. Yeah, no, you can't fake it. So with just three people, you go out there, you almost in a sense kind of feel naked. Like if you don't put out or if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're gonna be seen, man. I mean, there's nowhere to hide. It's not like you're in a line of like 8 or 9 people or whatever, or a marching band or an ensemble of, you know, X amount of people. Man, it's just you. But yeah. The thing is, we all enjoy, you know, doing what we do. So my career is, when it comes to the Disney thing, is I started off doing marching, okay, in a marching band situation. And then because I do play drum set, that went from marching band to something that was called the Hollywood Hitmen. We were kind of like a Blues Brothers band. So I was playing drum set. That was cool too. So now I'm playing different types of music. I'm playing funk. I'm playing Tower of Power. We're doing a Blues Brothers medley. We're doing Latin salsa. We're taking like Shiny Stockings and Round Midnight, which are jazz standards, and applying like a salsa beat to that. So I go from marching, which is kind of, you know, straight ahead, to drum set, a little bit more relaxed. People, my job, okay? I drum on trash cans. I drum literally on the stage. I drum on buckets. And I act like a cartoon. Things I listened to watch when I was a kid. Bugs Bunny. Now I'm going back, all right? I'm classic here. I'm going old school. Bugs Bunny, Little Rascals, things like that, and take that part of my personality and being like a class clown and amusing my friends, and that's part of my gig. I take that in drumming, and that's the Jammers. How can you not have fun doing what you're doing? How can you? And the cool thing is they allow me to. There's a certain amount of improv, and that's something we can talk about too. I mean, we could go for hours, man. We could go all night, believe me, because when you think about what you came from, and it was hard for me to go from marching. So it's like, it's pretty much stone face. It's serious. It's time to dig in. It's whatever. But that changes a little bit when, of course, when we're doing indoor, we emote a little bit more, our body movement, our facial expressions. So it's at least started to move in another direction that way. But this is pre all of that.
Yeah.
And now JAMMitors, it's like, it's still going to an extreme of performance. It's almost like actor improv meets drumming. So I had to learn to really loosen up. I couldn't be this, man. You know, I couldn't just be the, I had to be the clown that I can be and combine this with that. How can you not? And I get paid to do that. I get paid for that. Well, yeah. So that's something that, and again, you know, as I'm getting older, it starts to take a little bit a toll on my body. But what's easy, and well, not easy, what helps me push through it is that, yeah, I enjoy it. That's
great. So, you know, I know you guys do sort of rotate and do different types of productions like you have now with the ovens and all that. What's your part in the creative process as a, you know, a performer slash designer almost at Disney? Like, how does that work? They come to you and say, hey, we want something for this event, figure it out? Or do they tell you exactly what they want you to do? How is that dialogue, and what's your role there?
Most everything is definitely, when it comes to Disney and how they approach things, and it's why I think they do set themselves apart when it comes to that kind of arena, is they do what they can to plan ahead as much as they can. So yeah, as an example, we're going to be taking our show now, and we're going to be moving from the American Garden stage over to the Canadian Pavilion. They have a stage there that right now isn't being utilized. So once we do that, we need to come up with something for the holidays They like what we do now with the stoves. So we need to come up with something that's going to make sense over in Canada. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take what we do and we work with a show director. So we're able to get that guidance as far as the presentation, maybe the acting or dialogue part of things. And the good thing is they rely on us to come up with the music things to help make those things come together. So it's basically like a marching band. You have a visual person and the music people and the captions, and you storyboard and you get your ideas together and come together. So it's basically the same kind of thing. I've been fortunate that, well, in general anyway, with Disney, but it's since gone from helping create the jameters, not so much the trash can concept. That started out in California with Tom Float and his crew out there. We were able to take that concept and be a little bit more, a little less, not less drumming, but more of an emphasis on performance, improv, dialogue, connection, show kind of thing. So it's not to take away from them at all, because we're based on them. It was so good out there. Our people, entertainment people in Florida said, we want to do this, but we want to do it like this. Sure. So I was able to have creative input as far as the beats are concerned, which is great. Because it has a lot of rudimental flavor. It also helps too that we know different rhythms, that we bring drum set, that some of the guys do have more of an overall percussion background. We're able to do things that might simulate some kind of percussion, like a triangle. We tried to pitch different wrenches to get almost like a xylophone kind of thing when we did something based on Stanley tools a couple of years ago. So we have the background. They let us utilize our input with that. I've also been able to branch out, not only with the jameters, but I have created shows percussively with different groups, some that were at the Magic Kingdom. And now there's a group that's at the Disney Studios that I helped put together. 3 guys helped write some music for it, the Green Army Drum Corps. So it's Green Army men, and we come out and we've got a snare, a marching snare, tenors, and a bass drum that's more like horizontal than
like the ergo, yes. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we come out, and so I sub with that, as a matter of fact, too. So I do that, but I've written for that.
Yeah, I remember you posting about that on Facebook, and that costuming is epic, because you guys come out and you look like army men, like green, like gigantic little green army men. Yeah, and everything is based on the theming for that was put together because of Toy Story Land that they added at the studios. So now, just because of what the challenges that we're dealing with, they are now in a processional or a parade at the studios that they play. We play to a track. We're part of the track, and we're part of the character processional that goes up Hollywood Boulevard. So yeah, they're out there and a part of it. So I helped create that as far as putting the beats together. And I also have helped with percussion auditions for Disney, especially when they had a trash can group over in Japan. I helped run auditions for that. I helped run auditions for the student musicians that we had that do the seasonal. This year, obviously, probably not, unfortunately, going to happen. But when we have the college band come in program, we have marching groups and performing groups at the Magic Kingdom. Anything percussive related with that, I come in and help run the audition process for that. That's awesome.
So my career there, I mean, again, you never know where these things are going to lead to. And you get involved in teaching, you get involved in writing, you get involved in creating, you get involved in performing, is that those resources, somebody may come to you and say, we could use that guy. By getting involved with marching band, with concert or symphonic band, with jazz band, with solo and ensemble, you create opportunities for yourself. Not just then, which is great. That's immediate. It's things in the future that you can, wow, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things as a career. And I'm hoping that the world gets back to that. I do.
Yeah.
I think we will. It's just the challenges now of, okay, we still got to kind of do what we can to get by.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is that audition process like? If somebody's thinking like, this sounds cool, how does somebody get the gig, trying to become a performer with Disney?
I will say this from a Disney perspective, and I will also say this in general in a real world perspective, as far as in addition to Disney. For Disney, you have to be at least 18 years of age because of the schedules that are involved of when you would have to be performing, the rehearsal periods that you would have, the schedule and the commitment and the time commitment. You do have to be at least 18 years of age or older. What I would recommend is for people who are younger, maybe in the end of high school, college, is to contact Disney Talent Booking and just find out about what their schedule is as far as, are there any auditions coming up? Again, now there's really nothing, unfortunately, with that, but there will be. All right. Also, if you specialize in whatever instrument and you happen to be at Disney or a theme park like Disney, research that. Go to that show. If you're able to be in the park, not only watch the show so you see what you're getting yourself into, it's also good to seek people out. You can go to an attendant, a stage manager may be there. You may be able to catch someone who is, sorry, that was my way better half, my wife saying hello, who may be there and ask them and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I'm a musician, I'm interested. We have people come up to us and say, I'm interested in auditioning, what do I do? First thing I would do is contact Disney Talent Booking and find out, and they will let you know about auditions. The second thing I would do is research, or not necessarily in that order, go to the group or the band or the situation and watch shows. Watch it, listen to it, do an assessment. Can I do this? Know what it's going to entail. 3, when you go for an audition, know what the audition is going to be. They usually put something out in an audition notice that says, we are looking for A, B, C, and D. So you know what the show is, you've seen it. Then you also have the criteria, and just know the criteria. So it's like preparation for a test. Although in our case, it would be a musical test. It would be an audition. Going out there and auditioning. 2 very important things with not only with Disney, but with anything. Could be an orchestra, could be a youth ensemble, could be any kind of performance situation, any kind of group. Be very conscious of appearance. If there's no dress code, at least dress semi-professional. If you have any questions, you could even ask, and hopefully someone will tell you, yeah, the dress code is this. Ask about that. That goes a long way too. Part of the appearance, and especially with someone like Disney, be very careful of piercings, okay, and tattoos, because some places have an appearance or a dress code. I think with Disney, you can't, if you want to get that snake that goes from your neck down into your chest, or you want to get that nose ring, or unfortunately, and I've had this happen because we didn't realize that as musicians, we're not looking so much at, we're not scrutinizing appearance. But if someone comes in halfway, dressed nice and prepared, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're listening for. But unfortunately, someone came in who was actually qualified to do the gig on their instrument, and I didn't realize they had gauges, which is like an earring, but like a hole. But what they did, they got a gauge that was flesh colored and solid. So it was hard to tell in the earlobe. But when our customers, part of the process of an audition, after you go through the music audition, you have to go get measured and try on a costume that you're trying out for. Our costumers said, we can't accept this person because they had a gauge. And that was upsetting for us, because it's like, wow, this person was good and they were strong. But so be aware, I am all about self-expression, okay? But, if you're going to get something like a tattoo, be careful. I know sleeves on a tattoo are popular, but just be aware that if you go, wear a long sleeve shirt or wear a shirt and a jacket, or know that if you're going for a gig, if you have to expose a forearm or your legs, or some body part or something on your face, some places do have an appearance. They do have something that there are guidelines with that. So just think about that before you go out and get that tattoo or get that piercing.
Yeah, good advice.
Sure.
Something a lot of people don't think about, I think. Yeah. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about soloing, because that's something that you've done a lot of. And, one of your earlier claims to fame was winning 1989 and 90 in the DCA individual snare drum solo contest, which is awesome. Great solos. You can find them on YouTube still, right? Both of them out there. Yeah. So people can check those out. But since then and to this day, you've been writing solos for snare drum, a lot of which are readily available on TapSpace and like really awesome stuff. And so I wanted to talk about maybe first about your process for preparing to play a solo, like what it was like and what you've learned over the years. How much time do you spend? How early do you start learning if you're trying to perform something in March? When do you want to start, that kind of thing? So what's your process like as a performer in that arena?
The solo thing started, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate that. The solo thing started for me, which was nice to that I could not only play in a drum line in an ensemble situation, but I could express myself in a solo situation. And it just so happens that for me, when I talk about doing these solos, again, you never know where something's going to lead to. You never know who might be in the audience when you're doing a competition or a solo ensemble being evaluated by a judge, who that judge might be. In my case, it just so happens that a gentleman by the name of Marty Hurley was in the audience when I competed back in 1989. And Marty, who many may know or may not know, his claim to fame was he was a very successful percussion designer and instructor with the Phantom Regiment back in the mid 70s to basically, I think 91 or 92 might have been his last year with the Phantom Regiment. My dad happened to be one of Marty's teachers when Marty was growing up in the Jersey Shore with a group called the Asbury Park Hurricanes. So my dad was there in the audience supporting me and runs into Marty Hurley. And Marty Hurley just so happened to have had his own publishing company. And that's what got me started into the publishing thing to begin with. So here I am just going to play. And it's like, a year or two later, I get contacted by Marty, say, hey, I've got this company, and I like that solo that you did. I'd like to publish it. Marty Hurley, and he wants something from me? Are you kidding me? So, and I was like, okay, publishing, what's that all about? So I did that. That's how it started for me. The other, and how more solos came, I wasn't trying to top what I did. So that solo, which happened to be Skyscraper, that was published with Marty. He had since sold his company, and I was able to very fortunately, and I consider them my friends, get involved with Tapspace. And that solo is available. You can watch it online, and it's also available at Tapspace if you want to check that out. But when I was teaching solo and ensemble to middle school kids, I was there as a guide for them. So I was kind of like a judge to kind of work with them on their pieces. And I was there to give them pointers and then, kind of critique them. But then I started thinking, well, wait a minute. If I was in this kid's situation, what would I want to play? So I was like, oh, okay. So there's an outlet. There's this whole thing of solo and ensemble. It's big in Florida. It's part of the school curriculum. I know it's big in Texas. And talking with you, Mike, you have that there in Maryland, which is pretty cool. So there's an outlet there. And I was like, yeah, I've got some other ideas that I've been kind of messing around with, just playing. Why don't I try to put it on paper? Why don't I try to put this down and offer it? So that's where all these other solos came from. And again, I've been real fortunate that a majority of the things that I've come up with at different styles, different levels, different drums, rope tension, high tension, 15-inch with a Mylar head, Kevlar, brushes, more of a New Orleans kind of feel, a funk kind of feel, a drum set kind of thing, a rope tension, ancient style, more modern. I have that outlet. So again, that all started, again, we're talking about the marching thing and how I got started. Here's another outlet from the marching thing where it's like, yeah, you're learning how to play within a line and then being able to express yourself. So does that answer your question? I know I kind of a tangent, but it's where it all came from. And it's another thing that I enjoy doing, and that there's an outlet there for me that if I get an idea with something, I'm like, oh, I feel good about it. I can at least, try to put something together and submit that.
Yeah. So what if, say, like a high school snare drummer sees one of your pieces, they think it's sort of in their vocabulary range, they want to prepare it. What advice would you have for them to go about that process, like a timeline and how that would look for them?
Well, much like anything, preparation is key. It definitely is. And, I would take a look at the situation as far as if you can get a piece of music as far out in advance as possible, the better off you're going to be, and the better off you're going to feel about what you do, because you're just going to go in more confident and not worry about, you'll have less to worry about than more. You're just going to go out and do it. The other thing I would do too, as far as preparation, is, especially now, even though the challenges we have with the COVID situation, you may have more time at home now to say, hey, you know what? I could take this 2-hour block of time and just go for it. And I'm going to work on something, and I can use the whole 2 hours, or I can get done in a half hour. If you're able to take a look at something and plan it out, your preparation will definitely be a lot more effective. So I say try to get something as much in advance as you can, and then take things in chunks. My thing, let's say we don't have that much time. My advice is put out the biggest fire. So I look at the roadmap, I look at the chart, and I'm like, oh, what the heck is that? Okay, so I'll look at things that I feel are the biggest issues for me to perform, putting out the biggest fire, and I'll attack those first. Then I'll go back and I'll be like, okay, let me play the phrase right in front of that, and include that. So I run things in chunks so I can get a smooth phrase going from one into the other. Then maybe I'll run things in chunks. That seems to help me too. So having enough time to prepare and taking things in sections and in chunks, trying not to, because you can get overwhelmed pretty quickly. So if there's something that you feel is in your wheelhouse, say, okay, what are the challenging sections? And you block those out and you say, okay, I'm going to work this, and go with it. If you have a 2-hour block or an hour and you go through it and you go through it and you do it enough, maybe you get done in a half hour with that section. Maybe you get done in 45 minutes. Maybe you do take the full hour, but you're putting less pressure on yourself when you do that. So you're a little bit more relaxed in your focus, and you're able to focus on something like that. So that's one thing I would suggest is, trying to put out the biggest fire and block out your time so that you could be effective and not overwhelm yourself with the material.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's an interesting time because we're going to have less ensemble time this year. We know we're not in a marching band season right now, at least not in Maryland. We're not sure when we're all going to get back to symphonic band and jazz band. A lot of things are limited by, you can't have this many people in a room at the same time or whatever. Right. And so I think it's a great opportunity for kids this year on any instrument, in band, orchestra, whatever, to try out solo and ensemble. And so I think that's great advice on the preparation. Any words on how to select a solo? I mean, of course, each state has a list, but sometimes it's hard to navigate that. What's your advice there?
Well, one thing you can do, because I know they allow this in Florida, is if there's something that's not on the list, is to go to your band director and ask, hey, can I submit this? So the state of Florida allows you to submit something and they consider it and get back to you. Most of the time, they allow you to add something that may not be on the list. They prefer what's on the list. So that's one thing is if there's something that's there that you feel passionate about, go to your band director or instructor and they can contact whoever they need to in order to see if you can get permission by the county, the state to do that. The other thing too is try to be honest with yourself. Look at a piece of music. Can you do that? Can you think of being able to pull that off? And go to your instructor, go to your band director and say, hey, I'm looking at this. And someone else who is your mentor will be honest with you and say, I think we can work this up, or maybe you may want to look at something else. But just try to be as honest with yourself as possible to do that. And there may be some things that are a challenge. There's nothing wrong with that or fun to play or try to go for. But I think in this situation, it would be good to talk to an instructor, talk to not just one person, go to your instructor, your band director, and get as much feedback as you possibly can to get that guidance, to give you to help you have as good a learning and performing experience as possible. That's why they're there, the instructors, is to give you some kind of guidance. So take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think repertoire selection is huge. We talk about it a ton as band directors, but it's hard to navigate all that as a younger musician. And the great thing now is that you've got YouTube, and so you can find examples of almost anything. Back in the day, we used to have to like ask around and borrow a score from somebody just to hear a recording or just to look at a piece and get a sense of what something might sound like, or just guess, you just like call the publisher, like, I guess I'll try this one because it's this grade level. And that's probably where I should play. But
well, that's one thing I think that's definitely changed and been different when I was growing up, and the resources that we have now that we didn't have when I was younger, is going to a publisher and asking a question about music. You can contact them. You can contact them through email. You can maybe call them. Sometimes you could even contact the person that actually did it. People have reached out to me either through TapSpace or a website, or if they're in Florida, have taken lessons with me. And if they're doing something that I've done and they want to prepare, I can work one-on-one with them. We have Skype. We have what we're doing tonight. People can get more of an immediate information that's out there. The very cool thing about a lot of material that's out there now, whether it be TapSpace or another publisher, is, at least I can speak for myself, all my solo material I'm performing. You can go to TapSpace, you can go onto YouTube and go to the TapSpace channel, and most everything that they have, you can see and hear it. So if you have a question, it's like, okay, what is a backward backstick, or backsticking, or playing with the back end? Oh, that's what they're doing. You could actually see it. You can stop it. You can rewind it. You can be, oh, okay. Or if you have a question with something, it's like, how did you prepare for that? How did you do that lick? So, and I get these questions every once in a while, or I get them forwarded from TapSpace and say, someone's reaching out, they have a question with something. And you're able to get that information. So it's out there. Yes, YouTube is a great.
Yeah. Awesome. So I want to, before we wrap up, I do want to ask a couple percussion questions, because I'm a percussion nerd, and there's plenty of them out there that look at this stuff and think about it. And I know one of your teaching experiences was with Santa Clara Vanguard in 2009. And during that era with Murray Gussick, they had like a pretty different look and a pretty different style. So I was wondering if you could tell us about that. Give us a little primer. Where did that come from? How did you get wrapped up in that as an instructor? And what made them so cool? Because those were some great drum lines.
Yeah, they are cool. They're still cool. I got involved with Santa Clara because of my project with Murray at TapSpace, and that was in 2008. And I had an opportunity to go out and see them and observe a day for myself, one of their competitions. And so I kind of was able to take things in for myself and kind of see and hear what was going on. And I approached Murray and I said, hey, man, I see what's going on here. I see how he approaches marching percussion. I see how he approaches music and makes this music thing happen within marching percussion, which is very cool. And it was an approach that I could get behind because I felt familiar with their approach to drumming and their approach to, I got my sticks here, of different concepts of lift. A lot of things at one point in time were very wrist stroke. And, if it worked for a particular style or a group or the music that they were playing, the music and the technique, were in sync, great. But Santa Clara, what they were doing and the music that they were playing and how they were playing it, basically from the mid-90s to, I guess, 2005, with Murray Gussick and Jim Casella, their style to me reminded me of rudimental drumming and drum corps and drum lines back in the 60s and 70s. And so that was something that I could adapt, that I felt that I can get behind their approach. It's something that's called like a two-handed upstroke when you would play, is this kind of one following the other and being able to create a flow. There, if you notice about Santa Clara, sometimes there might have been some people might call it an exaggeration, but there was still almost a staccato to it. So there was it was kind of a modern approach to rudimental marching drumming. That was at least my take on it. And I felt that I could get behind that. The other thing directly in 2009 that Murray introduced there was something that was called push-pull, which was something that I discovered by accident years ago when I was marching with the Skyliners, is the idea of push down and then pull back up, so that you would basically get one stroke and get two beats. So that was something that he introduced and had exercises there. And you can actually find those exercises. They're available through TapSpace, through his technique program. It's on a DVD that you can find those exercises. But I felt, okay, as a snare tech and something that was very new to the line, I could reinforce that. I could teach them. So as a snare tech, I could bring that and reinforce that. I also felt that I could bring, for lack of a better term, a little flair to the snare line. Yeah, we could do some backsticking. We could do some fakes. We could do a stick toss. And those were in the show. And I even had guys who were performers who were a little hesitant at first that came up to me and said, hey, I really don't do that. And my response to them was, well, you don't do it yet. But you know what? They got on board with it, and we learned it, and they got it. So when they were in the parking lot and they jacked cheesy poofs up in the tempo and was doing and they were doing the backstick and the fakes, and people are losing their minds, it's like, yeah, that was a nice hype. But those kind of things were also in the show. So we could reinforce that in the parking lot. We could hype that in the parking lot, but then we could reinforce those kind of concepts that were in the show. So I was able to feel comfortable going into that situation with Santa Clara. That's why I felt I could go out there, and I'm glad I went out there, and I was very thankful for the opportunity that Murray gave me to be a part of that. And I loved it. I mean, that's, Santa Clara is one of my favorite drum lines going back, back in the day, a big influence on me. So those were some of the things that I think worked out well for them that year. 2009, Ballet for Martha.
Yeah, it was a great show. I remember watching the back and forth between the battery and the front ensemble, because they were both so strong, and all that, the nuance that they were able to get into the front ensemble with all those different lines that they had to cover it was a really special program. And I think that whatever it is about that technique, they just had a look and a style that was their own. And certainly they do now too, but that was a memorable time for them. So, well, cool. We're about out of time. Any final advice to our young musicians in the state of Maryland, folks going through the shutdown and not knowing what to do with themselves?
Yeah, believe me, everybody, I was once your age too, and I even found myself when this whole thing started going down and I was put on furlough and, found myself with all this time. It was easy to, crank out the Madden and, the PlayStation 4 and, just kind of hang out. But what I did was I worked on music. I worked on projects around the house and getting things taken care of. And I really felt better. It's a challenge because you're dealing with a lot of things that have been put on hold. And the fun thing and the cool thing is not to clean out closets, clean out a garage, to finally finish working on music or have projects that you have going on. But once you do that and the accomplishment that you get from that, I felt much better. I felt like I accomplished something in a sense, beat this thing. I didn't let it beat me. I didn't let it keep me from just shutting down. I was able to put and again, it wasn't the most fun thing to do, clean out closets or, make my bed every day or, things of that nature. But I had projects that I've been working on. So maybe you do have a school project. Maybe you have some music that you're working on for school. Maybe you got your own music that you're working on. Take some time. You don't have to bombard yourself, but take some time out of the day and devote to it. And the accomplishment that you have, hopefully that leads to doing other things. Maybe something with family. Maybe something as far as work is concerned. Maybe something as far as school is concerned. You're able to get that down so you can have downtime and you can play Madden eventually. I'm there too, man. So the thing is to try to be as productive as you can. And again, with this whole thing with music, we're going to get through this, but you never know where something's going to lead. You never know who's going to see you perform in a solo and ensemble. You never know. You could compete with your band, and then somebody says, "Hey, we saw your band. We'd like you to come over to Ireland for the St. Patrick's Day parade," or "We're going to go and do Macy's and be on TV," or "I can travel. I could be with the All-State Band, and the All-State Band has been invited by Japan to go over and do some kind of student exchange thing, and you're going to another country." And the bottom line with all this stuff is, why do we do this? Because it's fun, and you never know where it's going to lead to. So fight through this. Try to get some projects going. You got some things you got to work on technique, man. You got to work on right and left hand. Spend some time, get in front of the tube and sit there on my left hand this week. Okay, just sit there and work left hand, or and just zone out and get the muscle memory thing happening. That's another thing too I was going to suggest too with preparation. The more you take things in chunks and work them, you get that muscle memory. So the next time you come back, it's easier to do. So instead of trying to bombard yourself with one thing, take things in chunks, do it over and over again, and get that muscle memory. Maybe get the muscle memory of working on a project, cleaning your room, because it only leads to good things.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's lots of great information, great advice. We really appreciate it. Definitely, I would encourage folks to check out Tap Space, our drummers. Go check out some of the solos that Danny wrote, and the videos from his time as a soloist and from SCV. There's lots of great stuff out there. So, yeah, thanks for being here. We hope everybody's having a good, safe time this October, and looking forward to getting back into some marching band stuff eventually. So anyway, that's all for tonight. Thanks again for being here, Danny.
My pleasure.
And talk to you soon.
Sounds good.